This is chapter 7, and I'm gonna talk about some of the snap settings and some different ways to use your snap. We've already been using object snap, and usually probably that's one of the few that you might have turned on almost every drawing. But I'm gonna right click on my object snap and choose settings, and probably you're going to use end, mid, center, and intersection most of the time. Today I'm going to add quadrant, and I think that's it right now. Click OK. Now you can also use snaps, whether your object snap is turned on or off. You can override that and you can force a snap, and you can do that by typing the first 3 letters of whatever you want to snap to. For example, tangent would be TAN, quadrant would be QUA, or you can open up a shortcut toolbar, just right click the gray area here, look for AutoCAD, and look for Object Snap. And remember, you can pick up the little gray bar on the left and you can move that somewhere if you want to. So I've got my Object Snap on, and I'm going to do my line command. You see, of course, it's giving me suggestions that I set in there, my Object Snap. So I'm going to left click there, and then I want to this line to be tangent with that circle. So I'm going to use my tangent snap up here, and then as soon as I saw that tangent snap, I left clicked so that I could draw that line to a tangent mark. I'm going to draw another line, and let's say that I did not necessarily want to start at the mid or the end, but just wherever my mouse happened to be on that line, and that's the nearest snap. I can look for nearest up here on my shortcut toolbar, or either I can type in NEA, and just wherever I might be, it's going to click there, wherever I'm closest to. And this time I'm going to snap to a quadrant. Okay, I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to start it at the center of that circle. And then I'm going to get close to one of those on-screen markers for my snap location. Instead of choosing that, I'm going to use my tab key, and I can cycle through the different options. So I've got 4 quadrants that I can snap to, or I can snap to the center of that circle. As soon as I see the one that I want to use, then I left click and it will snap to that, even if I didn't happen to be close by there. Draw a line. I've got my quadrant snap on, but even if I had that object snap turned off, and I'm going to turn that off now, I can still snap to a quadrant by choosing it up here, or I can type in QUA and snap to the quadrant of that circle. Still have my object snap turned off, and I want to draw a line, and I want it to snap to the intersection of this. So I'm going to look for intersection up here. Then as soon as I see that X where that intersection is located, I'm going to left click to select that. Okay, you can also use intersection as a way of doing an apparent intersection. Even though these 2 lines don't really intersect, we can find out where they would intersect by using the INT object snap setting. So I'm going to start the line command, and then I'm going to use intersection, and I look over here and I wait to get my little reminder. As soon as it says extended intersection, I'm going to left click, and then I went over to another entity, and before I even clicked, it found the intersection of those 2. So as soon as I see that point, then I'm going to left click to end that line. And that line ended where these 2 would intersect if they kept going. Now, tracking, which is what we're doing here, is takes a little bit of practice. I'll left click there. Again, I'm going to choose intersection. Get close to that and wait for that little reminder, extended intersection. Then I left click to select it, and then as soon as I saw the other one, when I got close and hovered around it, then I could left click to see that one. That's called an extended intersection. We're going to use a line command, And I'm going to start it anywhere. And then I'm going to use, for this one, I'm going to use perpendicular. And I want to get over to the line to acquire the line that I want it to be perpendicular to. As soon as I see it, I left click. Now it didn't matter where I started that line. It was going to pick a spot that would be perpendicular to that line, whether that line was drawn that long or not. I'm going to do that one again. Line command, start it anywhere, pick up my perpendicular snap here, and go over there, and then as soon as I saw the perpendicular snap, I left click. Now you can do a deferred perpendicular. I'm going to start the line, and I'm going to type perpendicular, and then I'm going to choose my line. Now I haven't chose a point at the right end, but it went ahead and set up my perpendicular so that no matter where I place that line, the right hand end of it, it will still be perpendicular, and that's called a deferred perpendicular. Okay, I'm going to use the line command. And then I'm going to use tangent and get close and choose that line, and then I can tangent to that line. I can also use tangent in the way that I can tangent a line with both of these two circles, but of course it won't be able to place even the first point of the line until I choose a second tangent. So I'll start a line command and use tangent. Choose that one, and you can see, depending on where on my drawing I select another location will determine where the left hand end of that line is. So I'm going to use tangent again, and then pick a second point. By the time I located the second point, then it was able to locate the left hand end of the line. Okay, I'm going to use a parallel this time. I'm going to start this line anywhere, and I'm going to use the parallel snap. First, I want to acquire the line. As soon as I see that parallel tracker, then I'm going to gently move my mouse over to where I think approximate parallel would be, and it picks up a tracking line. That's line. I started it anywhere. Then I used the parallel snap. First I went over there and acquired it, and then I just slowly moved my mouse. Then as soon as the tracking line came up, as soon as I got close to it, it'll come show up, and then I can draw that line parallel. Okay, I'm going to use object snap tracking. I'm going to turn my object snap back on, and here, and the one right to the right of it. No, I don't want to use. Do not want to use 3D snap. Here it is. It looks like a little angle. Object snap tracking. And I'm going to turn that on. This one takes a little bit of practice too. I'm going to draw a circle with the radius is fine. And I'm going to hover over the midpoint of this line, and then I'm going to slowly move my mouse to the left, trying to keep it as straight as I can, but it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And then I'm going to hover around that one and pick up that line and move my mouse up. And now I've got the intersection of the two of them, and I can draw a circle where the intersection of those two midpoints would be. I did draw circle with my object snap tracking on, and I just hovered around that, and then I moved my mouse, just trying to be somewhere close to that tracking line so I can see it, and then pick up that one, and then slowly move it back up where I think the approximate intersection of those two would be. Now tracking is good for a lot of different reasons. With my tracking on, I can pick up the end of that point. I don't always have to have the intersection. of two of them, then I can pick up the intersection of that. So tracking can be very helpful. You also have polar tracking, which is going to track at certain angles. And that looks kind of like the object snap tracking, but it's got a circle through it. And I can right click and see some of my settings here, or I can go to settings and I can choose one in here. So I've got 30 degrees, and I'm going to draw a line starting here. And I'm going to move my mouse slightly. I must have turned that off. Turn that polar tracking back on. And you can see that it's giving me line suggestions at every 30 degrees. Now that can be nice if you're drawing something at 30 degrees, but you may not want that on all the time. But what you can do is just turn it off when you're not using it. Now I'm still getting tracking locations, but that's because my object snap tracking is on. If you put in an angle that's 0 to 360, then you have to keep in mind that AutoCAD calculates your angles counterclockwise. So if you want to locate a circle, if you want to locate something at 180 degrees, then keep in mind that it would be at this location and may not be. If you're thinking that 0 is at the top of the page, it's not. It's over on the right-hand side of the page. If you wanted it to go in a counterclockwise position, it's going to be positive. If you want it to go clockwise, it's going to be negative. So I'm going to start a line, and I'm going to pick a start point here, and then I'm going to put in the little less than symbol means angle, and I put in the little less than symbol sign 45. And you can see that it's giving me a tracking or a temporary tracking line. And depending on whether I want to go up or down with that, I move my mouse. And then I'm going to type in a dimension of 2. And you can see it's giving me a line that's 2 units long and at an angle of 45 degrees. If I wanted it to go the other direction, left click to start it. And then I'm going to go less than negative 45. This time it gives me a tracking line in the opposite direction, and then I typed in 2. You don't have to necessarily use the object snap tracking all the time. I'm going to toggle that off. You can use a temporary tracking. I'm going to draw a circle. Let's say I wanted the circle to be in the center of that box without having to draw lines there. So your temporary tracking is over here. It's the very first one on the shortcut toolbar. And I'm going to click that midpoint, and then I'm going to use temporary tracking again. And I click that point, and it gave me a tracking. So if you're not comfortable using the tracking, object snap tracking that we had a while ago, then you can use that temporary tracking, because temporary tracking, you don't have to hover and acquire it, but you can actually left click to select it. So I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to just do that again. Use temporary tracking, and I left click to select that one. Temporary tracking again, left click to select that one, and then I can draw that circle in the center. Okay, I'm going to draw a circle, and I want this circle to be located at a distance of 2 units and 45 degrees away from that line at the center point. So I can access a shortcut toolbar. I'm going to hold down my shift and right click, and it says midpoint. I'm sorry, from, got ahead of myself. From, and I want to go to the midpoint there, and I left click to select that, and then I'm going to put at 2 and at an angle of 45 degrees. So that located a circle that was 2 units and 45 degrees away from the midpoint of that line. Draw circle, and then I did shift right click and I used from, because you can also use mid between 2 points, which I'm going to do in a minute. And then I left click to select that midpoint, and then I just did at 2 less than 45, and it drew that circle. These two lines are about 4 inches long, and I want to draw a circle in the middle of those two lines. Draw circle and shift right click and use mid between 2 points. Select the first line, select the next line, and then it selects the point in the middle of those two. I just want to be sure and check, be sure that was it.